Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Inside the Walls podcast, episode 187. Yeah, we've been away for a while. Do apologize. Work schedules have changed. Parent duties got in the way. And of course,
Yeah.
our third co host is celebrating a 1 year birthday of his young one. So life gets in the way sometimes, but we wanted to get some content out, especially this weekend. Apparently, there's a game this Monday night that's kind of big. So we'll touch up on that. We'll talk about certainly some of the awards that have come out so far, and we'll break down a little bit of the previous the championship games and the national and American, and also get into the championship game itself between the Renegades and the Beef. And we'll give you our quick observations, what we think, and we'll send you on the way. We want to get content out because tomorrow is media day in the National Arena League. So we want to get this out of the way so you can watch the NAL Facebook page and social media platforms for all of the content that will be coming from Beaumont this weekend for the championship game of the National Arena League. And a fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, just a little fun fact for you Renegades fans. You have some pressure. Every team who has hosted an NAL championship game has won. So does the trend continue? So to the fans who are tuning in, appreciate, love you, support you. Thank you for the continued support. Unfortunately, because of Saturday, both teams are either in practices or traveling. So we just wanted to get a quick acknowledge some of the award winners, acknowledge what's going around the league, talk about the championship game, and lead it away. And next week, after the championship game is played, we're going to have a huge episode. It's kind of the send-off episode for the Inside the Walls podcast for the season. We will be doing the Inside the Walls podcast first and second team. We decided we're going to try and do that to make it a little entertaining because we did that preseason. Remember that we did the preseason positions. We want to see how the ending of the positions. Also, next week, at the end of next week, we're going to have 3 individuals on the show for an interview. We will have the MVP of the National Arena League, which will be announced tomorrow at Media Days. We will have the MVP of the championship game on, and we will have the winning coach on for the 2025 NAL champions. So big show coming up next week. It could also just be 2 people, probably 3 people. Don't know. Just keep track. But that's all, we have a lot of things to cover because we've been away for 2 weeks. Life happens. But I know it's lovely Saturday in the beautiful US of A. Hopefully the weather is chill because I know in Texas it's hot because it's hot here in Jacksonville. I guarantee it's hot in Omaha. It's that time of year. But glad that you can join us. Comment, support. What do you think? Observation? Do you think how can you say this? Team awards are coming out. So we have media awards, we have best, operations, we have overall organizations, we got a mascot award that's currently you can vote for, ladies and gentlemen, on the nationalarenaleague.com. So it's award season. So what benefit for us to give out our awards next week? So be a little intriguing. So with that, Matt, you've been very quiet. How you doing, man?
Sorry, yeah, I got a text message right as we were starting. So yeah, it is what it is. But no, I'm good. I'm excited for the game on Monday. It's been a fun week. The last actually couple weeks have been really fun here in the National Arena League, and I'm just like I said, looking forward to Monday night's game.
Well, Monday night's game is again between the national champions and the American champions. It is the Beaumont Renegades and the Omaha Beef. And the game will be played in lovely Beaumont, Texas. And I don't know. That's some history between the state of Nebraska and Texas back in the old Big 8 days of college football. A little bit of the Big 12 before both teams went their separate ways in college landscape. But we got to preview what led them here in the American Championship game. The Beaumont Renegades outlasted the Columbus Lions. Columbus is still the only team to beat Beaumont this season. And you look over in the national division, Omaha does it again to get back to the championship game. I think this is 4 years in a row Omaha has been to a championship game. They held off at one point, it
it's
looked
actually
like
5.
5-4, what, 6? Well, let's just say 6, okay? Because it's, death, taxes, and Omaha making a championship game. That's what it sounds like, okay? It's almost a tradition that keeps on giving. Can we agree? But interesting weekend. I know both games had different type of characteristics. At one point, it looked like both teams were just going to run away with the game, and both teams, let's say Colorado and Columbus, made it quite intriguing. But one thing that stood out to me in both games, when the game started getting close and clutch performances needed to happen, the two guys that you needed to make the plays the most, the guys behind the center, came out and showed out in both games to lead their teams to victory. And now we're going to have a clash between those two dudes, a young gun and a savvy vet who has done it before. So when I look at this game, you have to talk about your boy in Omaha, and we have to talk about a quarterback in quarterback in Beaumont that has been, how can I say, Carl Robinson III has been a guy that's not been getting a lot of praise. He's not been that, outgoing type of person on social media. He's the guy that I've seen over the last couple of weeks bring his lunch pail each week and just took care of business. It's going to be Tommy versus Carl in the championship game. Both quarterbacks with similar characteristics. Their playing styles are scary identical, in my opinion. But we got that championship game. What stood out to both those games in the American and National this past weekend for the two teams who advanced to play in the championship game on Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously you look at the Omaha game and Tommy Armstrong came out and scored 7 touchdowns, or contributed to 7 touchdowns in that game. So obviously he came out and just did what he did the last 2 seasons, which we kind of knew he could do. And what I think also stood out to me was that despite the fact that the defense for the Beef gave up 45 points, or whatever it was, that they still were flying around and hitting people hard. And then as far as the game you talked about with Columbus and Shreveport, Columbus and Beaumont, I apologize.
It's because Shreveport's been
I'm all over the place. I apologize. Columbus and Beaumont. I was just impressed by, again, like you said, Carl Robinson, right? The things that he did, not just him, but like that team was just, came together with the rushing attack. Denarius Antoine had 2 touchdowns as well. So I was just really impressed with the way that Beaumont came out and they played the way they've been playing for most of the season, especially after, having suffered a loss, just a couple weeks ago to Columbus. So, you know what I mean?
It was a great response. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So now they get to host the championship.
They get to host the championship, and one thing about this team is when we entered the season, we thought when we look at Beaumont, they were the biggest question mark, them and Shreveport.
Mm-hmm.
And you follow tradition and you follow history of the indoor game, especially the NAL. Usually, expansion teams are not playoff teams in your first year. They always, one win here, one win here. They may make a run at the end, but they never make it. Beaumont bust down the door right off the bat, knocked off some powerhouses to kick off the season, and they stayed firm. And they cruised to the 1 seed. They were no threat to losing that number 1 overall seed. And that's just how they enter the season. And I think that's the culture that you have in Beaumont. And that's how you win championships. Now, Beaumont, again, takes on Omaha. Omaha has been here. They have done it. They have gone to tough championship games back in the day in Salina and Sioux City, to just name a few teams. Of course, last year's game against Sioux City was one of the best indoor football games you will ever see. And how it ended, I guarantee Sioux City fans are still ticked at how that ended, but celebratory in Omaha. You're going to have this game, and you can see newspaper writings like you can compare it to the NFL. We've seen teams in the NFL go 14-2, 13-3, best team in the regular season. They'll win their first 2 rounds of playoff easy, and then they'll play an experienced team who's been in the postseason countless of times, and that team's the one who wins because they've been there, they know the postseason, their experience. But when you look at Beaumont, every challenge that has been presented to them this season, they just not have answered it. they have just blown the brakes off of it. They've been very impressive. And the one bad game they had, Columbus just capitalized on the mistakes that were there. That other teams previously to them, previous weeks, had that opportunity, winning one of them, but couldn't cap off. That is a sample of a well-coached team in Beaumont. And they have an offensive coordinator. I like to call him the humble assassin because I watched a couple of games. He likes to bait a lot of defenses into, oh, we're going to be running here. And then, wham, down the field, 2 plays, touchdown.
Speaking
They
of
are a threat. Oh, speaking of Solo, he's here. Appreciate it. I look at Beaumont and what they did to Columbus. That, even though the score looks smaller than it is, how the game started, you knew the game was over, in my opinion. It was just a one-sided affair. Even though the score got better towards the end, it just felt like Beaumont had that game under wraps. Now, in Omaha, kind of the same way until Colorado finally caught on and started pushing. And we saw moments in that game against Omaha, how Colorado's offense can be potent. And they just ran out of gas. Sale ran out of gas. You look at that team in Beaumont, it's been very impressive. They came in as a wild card. We even called them they're a wild card in the season because we were hyping. Well, we can admit, me and you and Jeff, we were hyping teams like, Wheeling and Carolina, and out west we're talking about Colorado, Idaho, and we really overlooked both Shreveport and Beaumont. But Beaumont went from, oh, you're not talking about us? Well, we're going to make you talk about us. There's a term that a certain head coach said in Florida State years ago, make us undeniable. They have to talk about you. Beaumont did that. We didn't talk about them early because they're a wild card. And now we have to talk about because they're 16 minutes away of winning the NAL championship. And that's an impressive season. It's a great season because they're the one of the 2 remaining teams standing here in the National Arena League, especially over the last couple of weeks.
Right. When you talk about it, right, a lot of times in these situations, people will use the word fluke, or they'll use oh, they had a lucky string there. But let's look at it, right? I mean, week 2, they opened up the season week 2, or basically week 1 of the season against the Sioux City Bandits, beat them, right? So then they played against their second game of the season. They played against the Omaha Beef, and they beat them, right? Those 2 games, everybody watched those and went, oh, man, whoa, what's going on here? Oh, that they can't continue that. But then you think about it again, right? They go in on April 26th and they go to Sioux City. And everybody's like, okay, this is where it's going to happen. This is where Beaumont's going to show who they are. I would argue that Carl Robinson went in there and showed everybody exactly who he has been all season. I mean, there were some plays there where he threw a ball and you were like, ooh, and then you saw the window that he got it through and you're like, okay, this guy's not necessarily playing as a rookie, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because indoor football, there's one thing to play as a rookie in the NFL or as a freshman in college or whatever, right? But the indoor game is so much faster and so much different with the reads that you have to make, just from talking to Tommy and Lorenzo and guys like that, right? That you're like, okay, at some point this is going to catch up to him. And what I thought was really impressive with Beaumont is the moment never got too big for Carl Robinson III. Never. It just never got too big. So he went into Sioux City and he actually led the game-winning drive in that environment. And that crowd was hot that night. I remember watching that game and I thought, oh, how's the crowd going to be? Because sometimes if it's not Omaha in Sioux City, no disrespect to Sioux City, no disrespect to their fan base, but sometimes if it's not Omaha or an established team that the fans know, they struggle to get people in the door, right? And that wasn't the case for that game. That game, they came in, they had a lot of fans there, and the fans were loud, and Robinson showed that he could do it. So then he went on and he continued. And then we're like, what's the next one? They go out to Wheeling, and we're like, okay. They go to Wheeling, and then
they were trailing at halftime.
Right. Here's the game. They were trailing at halftime. Okay, Wheeling's going to finally give them their loss. And what happens?
They boat raced them.
Right. Robinson leads them to the comeback victory, right?
I do have to say, Robinson, I think, has the throw of the year.
Yeah.
It happened in Sioux City. Triple coverage, right on the dime, only one place to put the game-winning touchdown. Because if he was off by 2 inches, that's picked.
I remember that's the throw I'm talking about, and that was on the game-winning drive.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, in the fourth quarter, he threw that pass right over the middle, and there were 2 Sioux City defenders right there. And if he makes that throw 1 second later, it's an interception and the game's over.
Yeah, deflection, the game's over.
Absolutely.
And that was the moment when I was watching the game. I'm like, oh well, he's legit,
Mm-hmm.
and he made the play. And the only few I've seen Tommy make that throw in the past. I have seen other guys, Sam Castronova, make that throw. I have seen, I don't know. There's a couple I can go on. Tommy Grady, Dan Rothball, some legends in this indoor game who've made that throw. Not every quarterback, especially in the indoor game, makes that type of throw. Like, that's when you go, okay, you're legit. You actually have a quarterback. And that, I think that was his coming out party, because if you look at the previous weeks for Beaumont, Sioux City was on a game-winning drive that first game against them, and they needed their defense to come out with a win. Their defense bailed them out, but that was the one game that that Beaumont needed their quarterback to show what he was made of, and he delivered, and he made that throw. That is when you go, that's my QB, that's our captain, we can win with him. That was the welcome to the NAL. We just swept the blue bloods of this league. Now let's take care of business. And they did. And they took care of business all the way through. They got every team in the second half of the season. They got every team's best shot, and they conquered each shot. And now we're in the playoffs. Now we can switch the story over to Omaha. How the season started. You're like, oh, there's question marks. What's going on? How's everything? Lorenzo Brown wasn't looking like a Lorenzo Brown himself. The offense didn't look good. The defense wasn't the dominant defense that we saw in Omaha. You saw the storyline for Omaha go throughout and how they ended the season, especially for the second half, about midway point. The big win at home against Sioux City, where it came down to the very last play. Go figure, Sioux City Omaha game coming down to the last play. That was the pivotal moment, I think, of Omaha's season. When that sided with Omaha, I was like, okay, well, Coach Negron and Omaha have a thing. And you saw as it progressed, every team they played gave Omaha their best shot, and Omaha answered. And honestly, you look at Colorado. Colorado was one play away of stealing home field advantage away from Omaha in the final week of the season. Omaha answered that call. And then in the playoff game, it was basically a shootout, and it was all early in the game. You're like, okay, who's going to make the first mistake? Colorado was making the first mistake. So you saw the two different storylines from the season going into the championship games of both divisions. One thing that it stood out to me so far between Omaha and Beaumont is now we can look at Beaumont and go, well, they're no longer a wild card. They're a legit organization. You look at Omaha, well, you just look in the rafters. They have banners. That means they've done it before. This game, you see a young team in Beaumont who has a young quarterback, but also with Beaumont, they do have experience of guys. But the overall playoff experience, that's the advantage of Omaha. So we're going to have a battle between the young guys and the guys who have been there. And we've seen this a lot in the NFL and in college football for years, where you have a team that's been there, done that, play a team that's a new kids on the block. And historically, you saw the team that's been there, done that, win majority of those affairs. But in the indoor game, crazy things have happened. Just talk to Massachusetts a couple years ago with their loss to Northern Arizona. Just talk to the Carolina Cobras when they a couple years ago when they lost to the Jacksonville Sharks when they were winning that game. A lot of things can happen are weird, interesting, but weird. I get accused of going to statistics so much, so I'm not going to get into the stat wise. But one stat needs to be standing out. How crucial how crucial it is to be the home team in the NAL Championship. Every team that has hosted an NAL Championship, that is the Jacksonville Sharks, Carolina Cobras, the Omaha Beef, undefeated at home. They have never lost a home championship game. So we got to preview. Does the trend continue? That's the question. And observations of this championship game here, Matt. I'm just looking forward to the battle that we're going to see. We got two-headed monsters on both sides with the running backs. We got two-headed monsters at quarterbacks. We have a vet who is notorious, who has won the championship on his arm and on his leg. He literally passed out during the championship game last year. He was playing so much. And we have a young gun who is making himself known. And you have kicking specialists. I think this is the best kicker that Omaha has had in a long time. And he's kicking deuces, which is a big win. You look at this game and you look at the defensive sides of both sides, very experienced on both sides. Hey, I think this game could turn out to be an instant classic. This game could be a carbon copy of last year where it comes down to the very last play. I do know this for sure. I'm not taking Beaumont for granted like we did early in the season. And I guarantee you, Omaha is trying to seek revenge for what happened earlier in the year. And it's going to be a showdown, especially the guys in the backfield. You got Tobias, you got Denarius, you have Carl, you have Tommy.
Yeah.
Like, if
I,
you're not a fan of that, then you're not a fan of the sport.
yeah, I talked to Coach Negron on Thursday night on Prime Cuts. And one of the things that he mentioned was obviously they respect Beaumont. Yeah. Everything I've seen, I got to witness a little bit of the defensive team meeting on Thursday as well. The way that Coach Loftus talked about their team, they respect their offense. They respect the things that they can do offensively with that team. You know, but I think the big thing is exactly what you said, right? Coach Negron came in, and that first game that he was the head coach was the game against Beaumont in week 5, I believe it was, right? And I know that sits in his craw. It sits salty in his craw, and he wants to avenge that loss. But you talk to Tommy. Tommy wasn't even there, right? But you talk to any of the guys that were a part of this team before at the beginning of the season, the guys that were there when that loss happened, right? Every single one of them to a T is ready and willing and chomping at the bit to go down to Texas and prove a point and make a statement, right? I think the biggest thing too is, and again, Coach Negron touched base on this on Thursday, was this Omaha defense has given up the most points they've given up all season the last 2 weeks of the season. And for them, you know, going into the playoff game, they had averaged 24.9 points per game. So 25 points a game that they were giving up. That's unheard of in indoor football. That actually, I believe, beats the record of the 2023 Omaha Beef defense. That was incredible that year, and they won their games by like 30 points on average or something. But that defense, the guys that I've talked to on there, you know, Raphael Turner and DeAnthony Hall Steele and Marcus Gray and some of those other guys that I've talked to, they want to go down there and they want to get back to the standard that they had set. You know, we have a hashtag in Omaha right now, hashtag the standard is the standard. And their standard is they want to hold people to a low number of points because they know that if they do, their offense has plenty of firepower to put points on the board. So,
and if you look at the season, you look at the numbers they have posted every game this season, no one's had a chance to slow them out. Their defense is pretty good. Their defense can slow teams down. I just look at this game and you can't ask for a better championship game with two teams who have led statistical categories in offense on both sides of the ball, or both Omaha and Beaumont. They've been in the top tier of the league, and also you look at defense; they're in both in the top tier. So you're getting the best of the best in this game. And the game is, remember, ladies and gentlemen, the game is on Monday night. So Monday Night Football, and that's going to be an intriguing game. But before we get into the awards that have been released by the National Arena League, you can visit thenationalarenaleague.com for a lot of the current awards. There are more awards still coming, including MVP and other Coach of the Year awards that are going to still come out. So keep watching nationalarenaleague.com for more information. National Arena League Media Days are tomorrow, and I do believe it's being streamed, if I've read the article correctly, on Facebook, Twitter, and all social media platforms, so you can get a hold of what's going on in the National Arena League. So I'm going to do this, even though we're not going to predict the score and who's going to win. We're not going to be like that. Okay, Matt. What is a worst case scenario for Omaha
Worst case scenario for Omaha.
in this game?
Uh,
What has to
on
happen? You're like, yeah, tip of the cap. Congratulations, Beaumont. What needs to happen? The worst case scenario for Omaha.
Man, I would say Tommy Armstrong being injured, but then you've got Lorenzo Brown. So, um, that's
Mine's injuries. Talk about like something that happens.
yeah.
Like
I would say Omaha is uncharacteristic in terms of football over multiple times.
okay,
That's what I would say. I mean, if Omaha does that, if Beaumont can force Omaha to turn the ball over, which we haven't seen them do a lot this season. I mean, a few times, but not a lot of turnovers. Then I think that favors Beaumont, and that would be a situation where coming down into the end of the fourth quarter, and maybe we have a turnover, and I'm just like, But even with that defense, I'm confident that they would still be able to pull it out. But I would say, yeah, multiple turnovers would be what would potentially cost Omaha the game.
that's a good. A good. I was going to say something like that, but you covered it. I think Beaumont's worst case scenario is if they become one dimensional.
Yeah, 100%.
If they become one dimensional, that's good for Omaha. And also, high scoring game benefits. Surprisingly, I'm going to surprise you guys. Actually, high scoring game benefits Omaha because I think Omaha's offense, because they had to do against Colorado, their offense needed to go out. Like I think a lower score game benefits Beaumont because their defense is shutting down Omaha. If it's a high scoring game, I think it benefits Omaha. And if you look at the stats over the last couple of weeks, it tends to lean towards Omaha's favor if it's a high scoring game. And you have to admit, Negron is a good mastermind in his offense, and you saw the key twitches and changes he did to get the offense more up to par. Because we saw this team in the first 4 weeks, are like, man, they can't get out of their own way. They can't complete a pass. Penalties are just and now it's like every time they get the ball, Omaha scoring. But I think the offense. I think if it's a high scoring game, I think Omaha wins. But if I think it's a low scoring game, and I'm not talking about like 25, 27 low scoring. I'm saying like 40, 30, that type of low scoring game. I think it benefits Beaumont because that means Beaumont got a couple of stops that, helps them. Honestly, I think this is out of the years that we've done this show there, Matt. Last year's game, we thought it was going to be a defensive battle. We thought it was going to be an ugly, come down to the wire. It's going to be a boring defensive battle. It turned out to be one of the most exciting games ever in the NAL. Actually, I think it was the best game last year in the NAL. And I've covered multiple championship games from the Albany's 2 wins over the Carolina Cobras and the Columbus Lions, where one team scored more touchdowns and still lost, and one team completely dominating a team that they couldn't even get past midfield in two quarters. Championship games are weird. You can have the best roster and still lose, but you can also have the best roster and dominate. But you can find that out, ladies and gentlemen, nationalarenaleague.com to follow the National Arena League's updates on Media Day tomorrow and the championship game on Monday. And also updates for Inside the Walls podcast. Me, myself, Jeff, and the other colleagues that are associated with the show are getting anything together for something that we want to do, because as we cover the league throughout the year, we want to give credit to a lot of position groups. We are doing, just us, Inside the Walls podcast, are doing the first and second team NAL, just us. So we're going to do that as like an award show. Next week, we will have the league MVP on. We will have the championship game MVP on, and the winning coach of the 2025 NAL Championship on next week. So we're going to have a big show. It might be 3 players. It might be 2 players. Because usually, if you follow the trend in the NAL over the last couple of years, the league MVP kind of wins the MVP in the championship game. It's kind of a trend. But just want to give you guys updates of next week's show. But speaking of awards that have been announced so far by the National Arena League, we'll start with the Best Team Dance Team Award to the Lady Spurs of Idaho. Congratulations with that. And of course, we have to give some gripe to our buddy up and willing. That is Jeff Lubiner, who's our third co-host. Best media. That dude does a lot of work. It's him and a couple of other individuals, but he is the man in charge. So congratulations to him and the Willing Miners. Best game day operations is the Omaha Beef. If besides Matt driving the Jeep on the field town sometimes, I think it's the best. Once he's driving, I don't think it's
Right.
top five. Because that week, I'm just a little side story, folks. Watch Omaha game. I see him driving. So okay, cool. Then I go watch the WWE a couple nights later, and he's on the like, can he get off my TV? Like seriously, man. But yes, best game day operations again goes to the Omaha Beef, and also the best community relations, the Omaha Beef.
Yeah.
So Ricky's.
I mean, shout out to my guy Keith Pepe Tooker, who does a lot of game day stuff there. Matt Clark, who does a lot of our social media stuff, and he's part of the game day stuff as well, doing some of that. Shout out to DJ K-Dub, who does our on-field interview with the coach at halftime. Just that kind of stuff. Just really cool to see those guys get the recognition that they deserve. And then obviously owner Ricky Burtz, we couldn't do any of the game day stuff without him. So yeah, the game day stuff has nothing to do with me. Keith is actually watching, 100% accurate, nothing to do with me at all. All I do is drive a Jeep, but Keith, Pepe, couldn't do anything without Pepe on those game days. So shout out to him on that. But yeah, one of the coolest environments in all of indoor football, honestly.
And also other awards have been announced so far by the National Arena League. The Offensive Rookie of the Year, Carl Robinson III. Oh, we were just talking about him.
Right. Very well deserved.
Very well deserved. And a very contested conversation between the next one that we've had in our chats and I've seen on message boards. Very rare you see this in leagues, but, well, it happens. The co-offensive player of the year, Kyler Hinson, and Drew Prohaska from Sioux City.
Yeah.
Unique, but again, both individuals. Drew Prohaska, he's going to become soon to be the ageless wonder, but Fred Bruno is still there, so we can't really tell him that yet until Bruno decides to go somewhere else. But good. Congratulations to both of them. And, of course, Matt's favorite kicker. No, surprise. Special teams player, Colorado Spartans, Luis Ferreira. Dude was good. He was almost automatic for extra points throughout the season. Then those are current awards going out. MVP, I think Coach of the Year. There's a couple others. I think they'll be announced on Media Days, which is tomorrow on Facebook Live, where you get the teams talking. So NationalArenaLeague.com. But there's two questions I want to ask you, Matt. Who do you think is going to win the MVP? Because we didn't get a vote in the MVP. So our opinions are just our opinions, especially on the show. Who do you think, who wins it? And do you think there was someone else out there that deserved it, but you don't think who was in, not really deserve it. Who do you think was a strong second place?
Yeah, who do I think is going to win it? It's hard for me to not see Carl Robinson III winning MVP. I mean, yeah, he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. You could argue that, like, you can't have the Offensive Rookie of the Year also win the league MVP, but I would argue why not? I mean, look at what the guy's done as a rookie, right? I don't think that anyone that has legitimately watched the National Arena League all season long, I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that Carl Robinson III deserves to be in the running for league MVP. And I honestly think that's who's going to win it. I have no inside knowledge. I don't know anything. Here's a dark horse and a name that I don't think a lot of people will talk about, and I think might even surprise some people. And it's a guy that we got to interview early in the season. We were out in Wheeling for game day week 1. And that's defensive lineman Sam Hammond from Colorado. The dude has been a beast all season. He led the league in sacks with 12.5. And let me say this. He led the league in sacks with 12.5, and second place wasn't even close. He led the league by 6 total sacks for the number of sacks that he had. So the fact that he, as a defensive end in this game, with the restrictions that they have on the defensive line and the types of things they can and can't do, went out there and had what is considered to be good numbers for an NFL defensive lineman who has sacks, right? That was impressive to me to watch him play this season. And he was a guy who I had my eyes on every time I was watching Colorado. I could see coaches in this league giving that guy his flowers and saying, look, the stuff that he did was impressive, but I fully expect to see Carl Robinson the third named league MVP tomorrow afternoon when they make those announcements.
I think so too. I think that I think Carl will win the MVP. And again, Hammond is another good individual. Very impressive numbers through for him as well. And there are other individuals out there that you can point to and go,
Absolutely.
well, someone says an offensive lineman should win MVP once. Yeah, that's going to be kind of hard. I think your PFF grade has to be like 5,000 to be recognized for something like that. Yeah, big men don't get enough respect in this sport, in all levels of the sport. They get mostly criticized the most, but yet when they actually do a good job, no one talks about them. Weird how that happens for offensive linemen. Um, but yeah, I think Hammond has a. I think this year, top 5 people. I have to put Sale in there too. How he finished the second half
Yeah.
of the season.
Yeah.
If you like Sale, Hammond, well, Carl. And I'm actually going to throw a wild card out there. Like, honestly, I don't think this is going to be. It's not going to happen. Um, I think he makes it. If there was a top 5 list, uh, Brandon Munoz deserves to be on that top 5 list. He led the league in tackles. If Hammond didn't have an outrageously good season, Hammond will be. Brandon would have led those statistics, but I Carl's impressed me from the get. Uh, in my opinion, he's head and shoulders the MVP in my opinion. But Hammond has a great case. But also I gotta give credit. There's some individuals out there that don't get a lot of like Vince, like Giovanni Saunders, how he ended the season.
Yep.
Good, but didn't play a full season. Vincent Espinoza, when he had the opportunities to get on the field, showed that he can. But again, um, you look from the beginning of the season, you look at the end of the season. Carl's just his consistency throughout the year, just he earned it. But Ham's
Yeah.
a good choice for second. But
Yeah, I know. Again, it's just a guy that's really been impressive to me too. Like you said, there's a lot of guys that you could look at. I mean, Gandy has had a great year for Colorado. You've had Trey W. Giles in Omaha that's had a great season. So has Isaiah Hall from Colorado. So those are 3 guys defensively alone that could, make a state of case too. But just, man, 12 and a half sacks in indoor football in a league that, again, has a lot of different types of restrictions on the defensive line. I think that's a pretty
but
impressive.
also usually special teams player of the year gets awarded to a kicker, usually, which
Yeah.
which it was. I'm surprised Stephen Newbold didn't even get a mention for that. Like he's a dynamic player, especially when he has space. Um,
Yeah.
like when Monday when the game comes final, we'll know who the championship is, and we look back at the season. And that's one thing I'm looking forward to when we start, adding who we think are our first teams, who your first team, who are everyone else's, and we'll see how the inside the walls thinks of the first team. There's individuals like I can just imagine defenses looking at the NAL defense. You got Brandon on one side, you have Gandy in the middle, you have Hammond on the outside. Then you look at the secondary, you can add a plethora of dudes in the secondary. I'm looking forward to how we get all these guys, votes and we present it on the next show and see how we think as, media members think of uh, the NAL this year, especially on both sides of the ball. But ladies and gentlemen, I know we've been gone for a couple weeks and Solomon is campaigning, sir. Like, why are you campaigning? But we wanted to get content out. Just wanted to give you guys some information that tomorrow is the NAL Media Day. So watch Facebook and Twitter for all updates for the NAL for Media Days. We wanted to get a content show out. We've been away because work-related issues, father-related issues for Matt, and Jeff, who's usually on the show, is celebrating 1 year of his young one. So congratulations with that. So he's having family that came up from Florida, so he's spending time. We'll be back next week for a big show interview with the MVP, championship game MVP. Remember, it could be the same dude, just FYI. The winning coach for the championship or assistant coach, depending on who we want to get on. And we'll do our inside the walls, first and second team, us as well. And we'll recap the 2025 championship game. And then the week after, we'll do a synopsis of the 2025 season, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like we usually do every year. Then we'll take a couple of weeks off to get together and see what we do in the off season. Then interview series galore that will be coming from this off season. We'll be interviewing players like crazy because during the off season, the players need a spotlight, and there's some individuals that we want to get on that we couldn't get on during the season that I guarantee you, the fans, will have want to have on. So with that, appreciate it. Y'all come into Beaumont. Beaumont is 17 hours from me right now, and I think it's a good 12 hours from Matt.
Yeah, the bus left like 8 hours ago, so I missed the bus, unfortunately.
I have work related issues on my part, so I couldn't make the journey to Texas this time around. But it's been a pleasure. The season has been awesome. Sorry we've been away for a couple of weeks. Thank you for sticking around. We had over 50 people watching tonight. Thank you. Inside the Walls podcast is the official podcast of the National Arena League. So remember, watch everything. Also, I forgot to mention, we got a championship game on Monday night presented by Hard AF. So get to the champ. If you're in Beaumont, if you're in Texas, get to the game. It's a championship. Football's bigger in Texas. Well, I can go somewhere with a comment about well, that's Aggie land, so they'll actually maybe laugh if I made a joke about the Longhorns. That's Aggie land over there in Beaumont. But it's a championship game in Texas. And look on the bright side, NAL fans. Championship games this Monday night. That means you're 1 week closer to fall camp for all your college teams and the NFL. It's how fast the sport is. So football season might have that couple week break, but it'll be back right after, soon after. And by the time me and Matt's teams get through halfway through season, we were like, okay, when's the NL season going? Because the NFL season's done for us. But anyways, hey, don't even start. Any final words there, Matt?
No, just like Jim said, get out there, watch the game on Monday night, support your team, pick a team to root for if you don't have a team in the fight, and just look for a great football game that is going to feature some awesome athletes and just, guys that want to be out there because they love the game of football. So
with that, ladies and gentlemen, remember you can follow us on all social media platforms at InWallsPod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. That's if they get us off of a ban. Apparently, we violated community standards. Don't know what we did, but we did. Maybe it's because we're not inactive. That's why. But weird things have happened to social media this day and age, if you catch my drift. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, follow us on those social media platforms. Also, keep track on all NAL podcast productions on YouTube, on Inside the Walls Network itself. It's been a pleasure. Most respect. If you're traveling the game, be safe. Stay cool because it's hot as heck in the South right now. I don't know if it's hot in Omaha. Is it hot in Omaha?
Yeah, it's like 90 some degrees today. Tomorrow's supposed to be a little bit cooler because I think we're supposed to have some storms roll through. But yeah, it's like in the 90s, which is relatively hot here. So
going any games?
Yeah, I'm actually going tomorrow night with my son for Father's Day. Yeah, it's going to
be. Thank you for reminding me. To all you fathers out there, Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, there, Matt.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah,
appreciate it. It's a pleasure. So hopefully enjoy your time there at the College World Series. To the people who are traveling to the game, be safe, drive well, don't be an idiot. Get to the game safely, and when you get home, celebrate responsibly. And remember, if you're at the game, celebrate with Hard AF Seltzer. a sponsor of the championship game. Got to get that plug in there too. So.
Yeah.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, that is Matt. I am Jim. Be well, be safe. We'll be back next week to recap the 2025 season and a few of our awards. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Much respect to the coaches and the players who have gave us opportunity to give them on this platform. We ain't going anywhere. We'll be back. We'll see you guys next week. Be well, be safe, and peace.